Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third episode of Canton Avenue. I'm Lane Hollingsworth, joined by my co-host,
Cord Koenig.
We're happy to be here. We thought for this episode we'd give you an opportunity to get to know the two of us a little bit better, and so we're not having a guest on today, but I'm thinking next week we're going to have Wyatt on, and we might even film that later this week. But right now, we figured we'd give you all an opportunity to know me and Cord a little bit better.
Something very informal.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more informal, and you might learn something if you stick around. We want to show you kind of who we are.
Well, hopefully, at least a good story.
Yeah, or at least give you a good story. So a little backstory on us. Me and Cord met in 2018 when I moved to Bandera. He had grown up there, and I moved there from Fort Worth. Went to school together and all that good stuff, and ended up being president class or vice president of the senior class and played baseball.
Well, I mean, to kind of, I guess, jump in with you there, I mean, we really became friends through baseball. Going into our sophomore year, Lane moved into Bandera High School, and obviously, as the year progressed, him and I became pretty good friends, and he ended up joining the baseball team there at the school, and that's really kind of where it all started.
That's where we get to know each other.
Following that, we, I guess, kind of became running mates for class president and vice president as much as you can in high school.
Which was a good time.
I mean, we did a lot of stuff like that and ended up going to Texas Tech here, and now we're living in a house on Canton Avenue.
Canton Avenue. Yeah. So that's a fun thing. That's where the name comes from, by the way. Somewhere in between where Canton Avenue ends and begins is me and Cord. So if you're nuts and you're coming to try and find us, we're somewhere on this, 4 mile long street.
Which I don't know how, I mean, obviously we're in the very infant stages of this podcast, but I don't know exactly how comfortable I feel about having about 90% of our address just kind of out there.
I think by the time, if it ever got big enough that we were having to worry about people having our address.
If we take this thing global,
which is the plan,
I really hope that we can afford, maybe a more secluded little bit of a
step might invest in something else,
something like that. But anyway, that's kind of where the name comes from.
Global, yeah.
I want the record to show, and I'm sure at some point we will explain this. I don't want to get into it in this podcast, but I wanted the podcast to be called Meatball Conditions.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that when we have one.
Kind of gives you like a story. In fact, we'll kind of like you said, we'll talk about it the next podcast. So if you're curious as to why I wanted it to be that, well, just stay tuned and keep watching, and you'll find out.
We'll tell you why we ultimately didn't choose Meatball Conditions. But okay, so yesterday, or not yesterday, but earlier in the week, you were telling me about a girl you had met who had a promise ring. And
okay,
tell me about that, Cord, because I know we get some strong feelings. Am I a bit loud?
No, you sound good. Okay. Well, before I jump in too far into this, I guess I'll just go ahead and say that this will be my one rant for the podcast, because it wouldn't be right, it wouldn't be natural if I didn't at least have some sort of kind of out there opinion on something. Well, here, this has been a little while ago, but I worked with this girl who I mean, I guess to put it simply enough, had this promise ring.
Yeah.
So anyway,
how do you feel about the promise ring?
Well, Coach, I'm getting there. Just give me a second. So anyway, so she's sitting there, and we're kind of like in a group setting. She's talking about, whatever, and she's talking about this guy, and then she shows this ring. So me being the supportive, nice coworker that I am, I ask, "Oh, so you're, kind of like,
engaged.
Yeah, you're engaged." Just trying to kind of forward the conversation, give her a chance to talk about her grand experience. I mean, really just kind of little layup, alley-oop type
question,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, just kind of something that
You thought really wouldn't be that big of a deal.
keep the ball rolling. Well, she looks at me like I said something stupid. And she goes, no, it's just a promise ring. And I kind of looked at her and I said, well, isn't that kind of what an engagement ring is? And she said, no, it's completely different. So then I responded with, oh, so you're just dating then? To which she also disagreed with that.
Also false.
So I was sitting there.
So, darling, help me figure this out. What are we? If we're not dating and we're not engaged, what's the play here? Because, Cord, I don't know if this is just some, maybe I was misinformed, but basically the way I understood it is you date, you get engaged, you get married. Those are the basic 3 steps of any romantic relationship. Am I making that up?
I mean, as far as I was ever told, that was kind of what the expectation was for me. But, and I had necessarily no problem with it at first, because I expected there to be a really valid explanation as to why one would have that. And as the name might suggest, and believe me, if there's anybody out there with one watching this and can explain it better, I would be grateful to hear what that actual meaning is. But as far as I understand, it's just like a promise that like you will eventually get another, I guess like the engagement ring or whatever, which to me just kind of seems like a money grab. It's kind of like,
yeah. I mean, I don't think I'll ever have an engagement ring, and I think it's almost
a promise ring
or a promise ring. I think it's almost embarrassing to have the promise ring.
Well, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where, like, in my opinion, and again, I could be completely wrong, but in my opinion, it's seemingly pointless because, I mean, if you're already in a relationship with somebody, there's already a level of commitment that's expected and that's kind of promised. At least you would hope so.
Well,
so it's kind of like, it's like you want to have that commitment without having to actually commit to anything.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, Coach, if you want some jewelry, I'll go get you whatever you want. But, Well,
let me ask you this. Would you rather break up a relationship if you were engaged or if you had just given her a promise ring?
Well, obviously the promise ring, because that would be...
So, which makes me think it's a wiener play.
I just kind of think it's one of those deals where, like, you know how like little kids will like especially like little girls will like have like fake weddings for themselves. That's honestly kind of what it feels like. It's like you have this like fantasy in your mind, and like somehow this like promise ring kind of like represents like the actual ring in a way, and it feels like you're like playing a game kind of, but like with no repercussions. Okay, something bad happens. Well, I mean, you didn't. I mean, because you're not telling your family about, obviously if you get engaged, if I propose to a girl, first I'm probably telling my parents before I even do it, but still, that's something that the entire family is going to hear about. But I mean, you give a girl a promise ring, at least from what I understand.
It's almost more concealed.
Oh, I mean, that's like something you get for a birthday.
I like using Canton Avenue. This platform is kind of like a time capsule. So, darling, if you want me to give you a promise ring, it's going to be an uphill battle. I'm going to tell you right now.
I'm letting you know right now, if to any future girl that might be in my life, I'll get you a promise ring, but I want a Miller welder first. So if you get me a Miller arc welder.
Arc, okay. Big stick guy, huh?
Oh, yeah. If you get me something like that, I'll get you whatever promise ring you want.
Well, I bought a girlfriend a ring one time, but it was not a promise ring.
Well, but that's kind of what I said earlier. Is, I mean, if you want jewelry or have a specific type of item you would like, of course. And again, this is coming purely from a place of like curiosity and a little bit of, I guess, disagreement. But if there's anybody out there that actually does have a good explanation for it and can really, tell me why it's important, please don't hesitate to. I would actually like to know.
Well, and in their defense, I mean, the opinions of this conversation are coming from two guys who haven't been in relationships in a while. So,
God
boom.
bless them.
Yeah, and we don't need you neither. We never needed you.
Go Raiders.
Yeah, but I bought this girl. Okay, here's for my men watching. Just a checklist. This is pretty much universal for most women. Go to gifts. James Avery, they got some good stuff. If she wears rings, get something from James Avery, one of those cheap ones. Super easy, super simple, can't miss. Okay. Who does it? Those charm bracelets. I think you can get the charms. Those are James Avery, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you can get them in other places too, but that's a pretty. You can get them there.
Most girls have one of those, so you could get rings from James Avery, the charms from James Avery. Another big one. Kendra Scott necklaces. Big thing there is just know if she wears sterling silver versus gold. But just get one of those, one of those regular necklaces or bracelets. You can't miss.
I guess tomorrow is Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Which y'all won't see this till after it's over, but
you can
some
use
ideas
this for a
next
birthday or Christmas or whatever. And then Ulta Beauty, another big one. Get her something Ulta Beauty, just a gift card. You don't know what you're doing. Unless she gives you a specific item, you can go in there and buy it.
Don't ever walk in there with her, though.
Yeah. If not, just get her a gift card. And then last thing, Bath and Body Works candles. Just get one of the girls in there to help you out. She'll pick out a nice candle.
Isn't Bath and Body Works going out of business? Didn't they file for bankruptcy?
I don't know.
I don't know if that's true.
Bath and Body Works.
I don't know if that's true or not. I just for some reason when you said that, I thought to myself, didn't they just
You might be thinking Bed Bath and Beyond. I would be surprised.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway,
we were talking a little bit about ex-girlfriends and whatnot, and
just girls.
Girls in general. And I talked about, some of the gifts I gave to my ex-girlfriend, whatever. We can't go into the entirety of my relationship past. Not that it's super lengthy, but it's super complex. Okay. It's it's a labyrinth of emotions. And, but there's a great story that Cord likes to tell me. And if you're okay with telling it on the podcast, the paycheck story. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The paycheck story. And this is one of my favorites. Wyatt, who will probably be our next guest, my older brother, loves this story as well. Me personally, I'd like to preface it. He's going to do his own thing. It's about his ex-girlfriend. I love her to death. Don't have anything negative to say about it.
Yeah, just to kind of, like I said, before we get into the story, there's nothing about the story that's meant to come across as being mean or, anything of that sort. Story that I think is funny, and I have nothing bad to say.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's so funny.
Right when COVID was starting to happen, I was doing a little bit of work at the time, and I had a pretty kind of consistent schedule. And, so obviously when you do stuff like this, you get you fall into kind of a routine that you just follow every week. He doesn't really deviate at all. So while I was doing this, I obviously had a girlfriend at the time, and she would
just a sweet young gal.
Well, yeah, but she would, she would text me. She, kind of, what are you doing? What's going on? All that kind of stuff. All throughout the week, which is obviously pretty typical. But
no, it's pretty typical. I mean, I think I was dating around. Yeah, COVID. Yeah, I was dating around this time. We texting in a relationship, that's a pretty regular thing.
But
it wasn't like you needed her. It was just
but obviously, when you kind of do the same thing for a while, it kind of becomes pretty redundant. It's a Thursday at 1 p.m. Where do you think I am? Type kind of deal.
Still doing the same thing I was doing last week.
Exactly. So anyway, and at the time she didn't have a job, which wasn't really that big a deal, but obviously, I think that it kind of allowed her to have lots of free time. Well, this goes on for a little while, and then one day she kind of comes to me and she goes, "Hey, I'm really thinking about getting a job." And I am super excited about this because I think that, it's going to be a really good opportunity for her to get kind of some work experience, to kind of, just have something to do in general. Plus, I mean, we're dating. She gets that paycheck come in. if you want to buy me popcorn at the movies, that's fine too. You
Yeah,
know, I
yeah.
mean, I'm not gonna.
I mean, I'm not here trying to mooch or nothing.
I'm not gonna mooch off you, but you know, if you want to throw a little money my way,
sugar mama me.
I'm
that's
not gonna.
all right.
I'm not gonna
I love
complain.
being sugar mama. That's cool.
So, in fact, I think I even took her to her interview. I was real excited
because you fired up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm fired up. She goes. She gets the job. I'm super happy about it. She's super happy about it. You know, it's just a really, really good time. Well, shortly after she had, I guess, gotten hired, I asked her, you know, when do you start working?
Yeah.
And she said, this upcoming Sunday morning, I start my first day.
Bet got a little bit of training on Sunday. Yeah.
Cool. So Sunday rolls around, Sunday morning, and I didn't work on weekends. I was about as good as a government employee.
Yeah.
I mean, weekends, no go. But anyway, so Sunday morning rolls around. I'm so excited. I'm starting to text her what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of turning the tables. You know, I'm sitting there.
Still, you're like,
I'm sitting there. I'm like, what are you doing? And you know,
how's the shift?
How things going?
How's the shift?
You know, that I'm not getting the answers. I'm back immediately. I'm thinking, oh gosh, he's busy. You know, just that. I mean, the whole works.
Yeah, you're fired up, man.
Oh, I'm fired up. So anyway, she goes and she gets off. I guess about 11 a.m. or something like that, 10:30, 11 a.m. And I can't exactly remember what time she had to actually get there, but she had been there for roughly about 3 hours. So she texted me that she was off, and I was a little bit surprised just because I figured that.
Yeah, you get a little bit longer shift than that.
But you know how that is. You start training, you start kind of doing stuff like that. Sometimes the shifts are short.
It's whatever.
May not have been super busy.
I remember maybe it was an orientation thing.
Exactly.
A lot of times we started jobs.
I'm not even really sweating it. Not that I was sweating it in general, but I didn't really even think about it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I saw her for a day or two. And the next time that I saw her, we were kind of talking about it. She was telling me all the kind of ins and outs of everything and kind of getting really specific about it. So then after a while, I asked her, okay, well, when do you work again? Because I'm thinking, you know, orientation type stuff, start, you know, training. A lot of times, you work, you know, a couple days in a row just because to kind of get onboarded or whatever. She goes, oh, well, I work again next Sunday. And I was kind of like a little bit taken aback by it just because I didn't know, you know, exactly what was going on or whatever. So I didn't really think too much of it. I didn't say a whole lot. Well, she ends up going in the next Sunday and she works the same probably 3 hours or whatever. And, you know, isn't working again till the next week. So I'm kind of just sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, gosh, you know, I mean, I've never heard of something like this. Well, it all kind of comes to a head, I guess, that next Friday, because that would have been the first time that she would have gotten paid. So, and if she ever sees this, I don't really think that she probably watches this, but if for some reason she does, and I've messed up this story, please feel free to correct me. It was a long time ago. I'm not entirely sure I'm getting every detail right, but she gets I'm pretty sure she got a check in the mail, which is kind of different in like this new direct deposit kind of day.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, to the best of my knowledge, that check was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $35.
Coach, she's so excited.
Oh, she's excited. But the thing is, too, I was kind of excited a little bit. I mean,
and then you're
not as excited because I realized that the chances of me getting a $5 popcorn at the movie theater is probably not quite as likely. But I don't know. I just,
Coach,
every once in a while, I'll think about something like that. And I don't know. It just kind of makes me laugh because.
No, it should be funny too. And I mean, we've got quite a few funny stories from high school.
Well, what I was going to say is that, you know, in fact, you know, you and I have some funny ones too. And I think about that time that I saw you on the bike. You were heading to town on your bike as I was driving towards Hondo.
And you drove past me. Oh.
That's a funny story.
So my dad always talks about earning his parental stripes because I was so rough on them. I was hard to just have as a child, when I was a teenager at least. And there's this one time in particular I remember, Coach, you know, they've only got so many things they can take away from me. So they take away my truck, you know, because and I deserve this, all these things that they do. They take away my truck and my phone, and they say I'm staying at the house. But back when I was about 12 years old, I bought this nice Trek mountain bike. It's got the shocks and everything, different gears, and thing is real nice. And I bought it by myself in cash when I was about 12 years old. It was one of the few things that my parents really had no ownership over.
Add it to the net worth.
Yeah. It was part of my net worth. And so, Coach, I get in trouble this one time, and I was like, I'm gonna run away to my boy T-Dex. So I'm heading towards T-Dex. Trace, he's out on 3240, but I've got a hike. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a 15-minute drive by car. So 20-minute drive by car. So I've got quite a hike on this bike. And so I'm coming down. We kind of tell your perspective of the whole thing. And I don't have my phone or anything. So you can't really contact me.
Well, something that, and I can't exactly remember when this was, but Lane and I were friends, but we weren't, talk every day, text all the time kind of buddies. So if he lost his phone or something like that, I may not know it for a couple of days.
Yeah, you're not the first person I text.
Exactly. So, but we were good enough friends to where, if I saw him anywhere out there, during baseball, all that kind of stuff, we would talk. Well, I was heading towards Hondo, and I'm getting pretty close to Lane's neighborhood. Well, I'm just kind of driving. It's probably 6:30 p.m., something like that. Nothing. And I look over in the left shoulder, and there's Lane Hollingsworth biking the other way.
Coach, when you turn, I'm like 18 years old at the time. I mean, yeah, I can go on it. I can go on a bike ride, but I'm not like doing it like that.
Well, and the thing is too,
across town.
It's not like, he was just out for an evening stroll. He's probably 3 or 4 miles from his house. And he's not even like dressed for like a bike ride.
Well, and Coach, the other thing is too, Jerry Dodd's on my tail.
Well,
yeah, he's tracking me down.
About half a mile behind, there comes JD.
Because and I remember behind. he was kind of yelling at me on my way out of the house. I was around the curve heading off, and I was like, I'm never coming back. I never loved you. I'm never coming back.
How many times did you threaten that?
Oh, I ran away up to 10 times. But, sometimes I'd get really far. This was one of the times I got pretty far. I made it all the way to west side of town over by Sonic. But, so I'm on my bike, and Jerry Dodd's trying to chase me down in the Expedition or his truck, whatever he was in. And so we're going down Highway 16, and I'm biking, and then Jerry Dodd will pull off in front of me. So he'll kind of block me in on the shoulder, and he'll get out of the car. And I'm on the bike weaving in and out. I'm dodging traffic, dodging my dad. And he's like, come back here. And I'm like, I'm never coming back.
They need to put like a leash on you or something. Good night.
Coach, I felt, now that I look back on it, I feel terrible. But at the time, man, it was just, there was something, and I guess that's a great, that dynamic, that complex that you have whenever you're a young adult, when you're in those teenage years, is something that, we don't often talk about. But I mean, the priorities that you have a lot of times, at least for me, and the things that, I love my family. I've never not loved my family, but I had these priorities that were so much different than mine now. As far as like, I need to be hanging out with my friends all the time. I need to be doing this, that, this. And if anybody tells me I can't, that's a problem. And so when my dad would try to do his job, or my mom would try to do her job and parent me the best way they know how, which is a great form of parenting. They did a great job. And I'll sing their praise all day. But for me in that moment, it was, when I was in high school, it was just one of those things that, I didn't take it very well. After White kind of moved out, it was just, I was the oldest, boy in the house of the three. And I think, and this is a little bit kind of about me, kind of why I've became the person that I am. So I grew up in the same school district up until I was 15 years old. And then when I turned 16, we moved to Bandera. And I'm not going to lie, when we moved, I'm moving away from all my friends, everything that I've known my whole life. And so there was almost kind of a sense of resentment that I had. I was blessed to go to Bandera, and it was a great thing for me. But in that time, and I think I kind of always held that over my parents' head, and I wish I didn't, but I think that kind of led to a lot of our struggles when I was that age, when I was like 16 until I went to college. But since then I've gotten a new perspective on how difficult it is. Not that I know firsthand, but how difficult it can be to raise a kid from time they're a baby to the time they're going off to college or leaving the house or whatever. And I was not easy on my parents. And so I think those were some very formative years, but they were filled with a lot of hard lessons. So there's this one time, so just to kind of like show you, help you understand kind of some of the things that I would do. And it wasn't like anything that was just like inherently malicious. Like there was never like any real bad intent. But I remember one time, Coach, we've all got like, I'm driving an 04 F-150 and Tracy's got that 02 GT Mustang. We called her, what'd we call her? What's her name? Crystal. We called her Crystal. Because, she's old reliable, but she's trashy. She's a little bit trashy, but she rides good. So we called her Crystal. And then my truck was Claire. And I remember one time we got caught red-handed, hand in the cookie jar. We were doing donuts in the parking lot. Rich, I remember, and Coach, they just got this thing retard, and they just repainted everything. And, the seniors had just gone out there and painted their parking spots. And next thing you know, I got these tires that are rated for 50,000 miles. And I burn them down in 6,000 miles because, at least once every 2 weeks, if there's any sort of precipitation, any sort of anything, Coach, we're going out to the parking lot and we were tearing it up. So, there's cameras out here, right? And it's really not our class has 130 people in it. It's not that hard to identify whose car's whose. And my truck was loud, very distinguishable, unique rims and everything. So they ring my ass up. And then I go home and Jerry Don, who's in charge of the district, he's the superintendent. He has to make some sort of show of force, right?
One would assume.
Because if I could get away with it, then all the kids will think they'll be able to get away with it. So, I'm getting grounded. I'm going to ISS or whatever. And these are kind of things that would lead to me running away. I would be, I'd accept the responsibility of my actions. I'd accept the consequences to my actions, which was, if I'm going to go do donuts, I might spend a couple days in ISS, which was something that, I understood. And I didn't want to do, but I was okay with. This is the cost of business.
This is show business.
Yeah. And so I would do something like that. But then, when he starts dragging it into day 2 and day 3, that's when I started having problems. And this is when things like the trap phone come into play. And then if we're getting into a weekend and I'm not allowed to go out, that's going to be unacceptable. I need to be able to go out. And so these are the things that it's like, okay, either A, I could just accept the terms of my punishment, ride out this, me being grounded. Oh, I can hop on this damn truck, start heading down the road, and we could be partying by the end of the night. You know what I'm saying? Dad doesn't know the exact address. I can go off the res. And so a lot of times that's what ended up happening. And that's what kind of led to me and some of my parents' struggles. But I mean, there were times where I was doing all kinds of stuff, and I was a piece of junk. I mean, I remember like saying my goodbyes to my little brother and saying bye to my dog and being like, I'm never, ever, ever coming back. None of y'all ever loved me anyways.
I never did any of that, to be honest with you.
No, you weren't.
Well, because first off, my bike always had flat tires. So the bike wasn't really going to get me nowhere. And if you've ever been out to where I lived, I'm not going to lie to you, I was probably just better off going to my room. Because there wasn't nowhere for me to go.
It's a hike. Especially if it's after dark, Coach, you'll get mugged by a bunch of wild boar, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you just to get to like an actual pavement road was like a mile.
So we were talking about my reckless driving. This is a great way to kind of close it out. I want to go and give you a synopsis of all of my damages I've done to vehicles. Okay. I think this would be great. So let me just set the stage. September of 2018, moved to Bandera in August, got my license in August. End of September, me, Kenny, Brecken, all in my truck, leaving Trace's house, going about 15 over, put my truck in a ditch. Hydroplane coming down the hill. Boom. Okay. Nobody's wearing their seatbelt, so Brecken kind of comes flying across the passenger seat. He ends up in my lap. I slam my head up against the window. Kenny goes across back seat, hits the window. So that was the first wreck. Cost me about $2,000 to get everything fixed on the truck. Then, I crashed Mom's car. So me and Mom were in the Expedition. This one wasn't really my fault, but there were two, but the first one wasn't really my fault. I couldn't do anything about it. The second one wasn't my fault either, and then the third one was definitely my fault. So there's actually 3 times involving Mom's car. The first time, Court, I'm going on Highway 16 going up towards Fort Worth. We're going to see the Fam Dam or something, the whole Fam Dam. Damn Fam. And a freaking vulture was in the middle of the road when I was coming over the hill. Smoked him right on the tip of the hood. He got pierced like a squat, you know. So that one wasn't really my fault. I couldn't do anything. Car behind me, oncoming traffic, whatever. Mom understands. Second wreck in Mom's car happened when I was coming over the bridge. I got a truck behind me. Mom was with me again, so I wasn't held liable. Here come about just a roadblock of deer on the bridge, and so somebody had to get hit. I chose the smallest one and hit it. That didn't do too much damage. And then when I was dating my girlfriend that lived in Helotes, I was going to see her and rear-ended a car one time when I was looking at the directions. So that happened.
Remind me never to get in the car with you.
Coach, I've almost died with you before too. So,
Rich, I've never gotten in a car accident.
Yeah, but these things would happen, and I would go home and I'd be like, Dad, I don't understand why you won't let me drive right now. I'm pretty sure the insurance company we have now gave me my own satellite, just because I'm such a liability, bro. I'm awful. At this point, you know, since I've got my new car, I haven't gotten a wreck or anything like that yet. But I mean, you know, that was something that I felt so bad about that. I'm going to have to buy my dad a car when we make it big, because we are going global. So when we make it big and we monetize this, John, I'll buy my dad a new F-150.
Remind me, while we can cut this little last part here, I'm talking now out, but remind me one of these days to tell y'all about the time that my ag teacher smoked a deer on the way back from like an FFA competition, like while pulling a trailer. It was the funniest thing. Again, we don't talk about it now, but
ag teacher smoked a deer.
ag teacher smoked deer.
Listen, boys and girls, as always, I want to thank you for tuning into Canton Avenue. And I just want you to remember this. We're not going to stop because we are, in fact, going global. Canton Avenue to the moon. You can't stop us. We're going to keep trying. I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know if you like this. For those of you who know me personally, text me, tell me if you like this episode, because we want to know if you want to see just a Lane and Cord episode every once in a while to kind of keep things, get to know us a little bit better. Cord, you got anything for the viewers?
We're going global.
Going global. Stay frosty.
God
See you
bless.
next time.